certainly thank Carlos and Robert and Susan and Chewy for their fantastic introductions. Problem is, I have nothing more to say. They've said it all. The truth is, it is a real honor for Jane and me to be with you this evening, because this is not just an ordinary group of supporters. In this room, we have people who have been fighting their entire lives for workers' rights and to grow the trade union movement. People who have been fighting for civil rights and racial justice and to reform our criminal justice system. People who have been fighting to end sexism and for women's rights. People who have been fighting for immigration reform. Brothers and sisters who have been fighting for gay and lesbian rights. And people who have dedicated their lives fighting to save the planet against climate change. So thank you all, not just for being here tonight, but thank you all for your years of effort in fighting for social justice, for economic sanity, and for a country that belongs to all of us and not just a handful of billionaires. We began this campaign about 3.5 months ago. And when we began, people said, well, you know, it's interesting, but obviously this is not a serious campaign. Can you imagine a serious campaign when the candidate is talking about taking on the billionaire class? Oh my goodness. That can't be a serious campaign. Well, a few things have happened in the last few months. Just last week, we were on the West Coast. We had 15,000 people out in Seattle. 28,000 people out in Portland, Oregon, and 27,000 people out in Los Angeles. And we just drove in today from Iowa, where we have time and again had the largest turnouts of any country. And as you may know, there is at least one poll which now has us winning in New Hampshire. But it's not just large turnouts that speak to the support for what together we are trying to do. As I think some of the people who introduced me have pointed out, we are seeing in America today a campaign finance system which is corrupt. But as Susan mentioned, at the end of the day, money doesn't always win. Few candidates for president who does not have a super PAC. And the reason The reason that I don't have a super PAC is I don't believe in the agenda of corporate America. I don't believe in the agenda of the billionaire class, and I don't want their money. But what we are showing is that millions of people agree with us, and today we have more individual contributors than any other campaign. And here's what moves me very much. We have now over 350,000 people who have made a contribution. And do you know what the average contribution is? $31.20. This is a people's campaign. And we will win because millions of people are prepared to come together and say that in this great nation, we are not going to have a government controlled by a handful of the wealthiest people in this country. The American people are sick and tired with establishment politics. They are sick and tired of establishment economics and establishment media. The people of this country, all across this country, understand that corporate greed is destroying our economy and that it is unacceptable and un-American that almost all new income and wealth is going to the top 1%, and together we are going to change that. As Chewy just mentioned, we live, and thank you, Chewy, for running that great campaign. As Chewy just mentioned, we live in the wealthiest country in the history of the world. But very few Americans know that, because almost all of that wealth and almost all of that income is going to the top 1%. Today in America, if you can believe it, the top 1/10 of 1%, not 1%, the top 1/10 of 1% owns almost as much wealth as the bottom 90%. Today in America, one family, the Walton family of Walmart, owns more wealth than the bottom 40% of the American people. In the last 2 years, the 14 wealthiest people in this country have seen their wealth increase by $156 billion. That is more wealth that is owned entirely by the bottom 130 million Americans. We are living in an economy which is rigged. The very rich get richer and almost everybody else gets poorer. We need an economy that works for working families and not just campaign is sending a very clear message to the billionaire class, and that is, you cannot have it all. We are not going to allow you to get huge tax breaks when children in America go hungry. We are not going to allow you to hide billions in profits in the Cayman Islands and other tax havens when we have so many unmet needs in America. Corporate CEOs and billionaires, listen up. You are going to start paying your fair share of taxes. You are not going to continue to send our jobs to low-wage countries abroad, exploit poor people around the world, and throw American workers out of their jobs. We are going to change our trade policy. One of the fun things about running for president, there are a few, but one of them is you can force discussion on issues which Congress and politicians and media choose to ignore. And one of those issues is the issue of unemployment. Every month, federal government issues a report which talks about official unemployment, which is now 5.3%. There is another report which includes those people who have given up looking for work and those millions of Americans who are working part-time when they want to work full-time. And when you add that together, real unemployment is 10.3%. And let me tell you something even more frightening, which we never talk about. I asked the Economic Policy Institute to do a study for me on youth unemployment, real youth unemployment. Kids 17 to 20 who graduated high school. This is what they found. For those kids who are white, real unemployment, 33%. For those kids who are Hispanic, real unemployment, 36%. For those kids who are African American, real unemployment, 51%. You know, we have more people in jail than any other country on earth. And one of the reasons is that we got 5.5 million young people from my state of Vermont to Chicago to San Francisco, kids who are not in school, kids who are not working. In my view, it makes a hell of a lot more sense to be investing in jobs and education than jail or incarceration. We are going to end this horrendous distinction of having more people in jail, and instead, we're going to work to create the best educated population on earth. Brothers and sisters, when we talk about the economy, we're talking not only about this grotesque level of income and wealth inequality, we're not only talking about this horrendous level of youth unemployment. What we are also talking about is that in my small state of Vermont and here in Illinois, there are millions of people all over this country who are working not one job, they're working 2 jobs, they're working 3 jobs in order to bring in enough income to feed their families and maybe get some health care. And the reason people are working such long hours is that wages in America are much too low. So let me be very clear in telling you that I believe a $7.25 minimum wage today is a starvation wage. It's got to be raised to a living wage. And that is why I believe we have got to have a national minimum wage of $15 an hour. It is not a radical idea to say that if somebody works 40 hours a week, that person should not be living in poverty. And by the way, you will notice how rarely politicians or the media talks about poverty. Talks about the struggles of 45 million Americans today trying to survive, trying to put food on the table, trying to put gas in the car in order to get to work, trying to pay the electric bills. We are going to talk about poverty, and we are going to address the issue of poverty. And when we talk about fair wages, let's also understand there is no excuse for women making 78 cents on the dollar to come to work. Guys, we have got to stand with the women and fight for pay equity. You know, Republicans go around the country talking about family values. If you ever talk about this, they stay up nights worrying about families. But you know, and I know what they mean by family values. What they mean is that women in America should not be able to control their own bodies. I disagree. What they mean is that women in America should not be able to purchase the contraceptives they need. I disagree. What they mean by family values is that our gay brothers and sisters should not be able to get married or enjoy the other benefits of American life. I disagree. I have 4 kids. I have 7 beautiful grandchildren. Jane and I have been married for over 27 years. Somehow we accomplished that. I don't know. We believe in family, and we believe in strong family values, but our values just a little bit different than Republican values. This is, and when I talk about family values, I believe that the United States has got to end the international embarrassment of being the only major country on earth that does not provide family and medical leave to our people. Today in Chicago, today in Vermont, today in LA, a woman is giving birth. And for all of you who are parents, you know what an extraordinary day that is. It's one of the momentous days of your life. You're never going to forget it. It's a pretty big day for the baby as well. But here's the story. If that woman and that family have sufficient income, she can stay home and do what families should do. She can stay home and get to know a baby, bond with the baby, love the baby, enjoy one of the most important experiences that human beings can have. That's called a family value. But today in Chicago and in Vermont and all over our country, if that woman does not have sufficient income, if she's low income, a working class woman, she will have to be separated from her baby and go to work, go back to work in 5 days, 8 days, 10 days. That is not a family value. And that is why I believe that the United States is going to join the rest of the industrialized world and have at least 3 months of paid family and medical leave. And on top of that, we will not and cannot continue to be the only major country on earth that doesn't provide paid sick leave to all of our workers. And given the fact that we work, people in America work longer hours than do the people of any other major country, major economy on earth, every worker should be guaranteed at least 2 weeks of paid vacation. I don't have to tell anybody here, especially public officials, that the infrastructure of the United States of America, which once, by the way, was the envy of the world in terms of our roads, bridges, water systems, wastewater plants, rail, airports, levees, dams, all over the world. People came to America to find out how you do it. But today, our infrastructure is crumbling. That's the simple truth. And that is why I have introduced legislation and will make happen as president $1 trillion to rebuild our crumbling infrastructure and create up to 13 million decent paying jobs. Think of what America looks like when all over this country, millions of people are hard at work, rebuilding our roads and bridges, creating the best rail system in the world. Okay? And that's what we've got to fight for. But when we talk about jobs, it is not only the need to create millions of decent paying jobs, we must stop the hemorrhaging of jobs due to our disastrous trade policy. You are looking at a senator and former congressman who voted against NAFTA, against CAFTA. I am going to help lead the effort against this disastrous Trans-Pacific Partnership. Corporate America cannot continue to shut down manufacturing plants in Illinois and Vermont and all over this country, send those jobs abroad, and then bring their products back into this country. Corporate America is going to have to start investing in Illinois and Vermont and America. Brothers and sisters, when we talk and use words like greed, fraud, dishonesty, arrogance, these are just a few of the adjectives to describe Wall Street. All of you know that the greed, the recklessness, and the illegal behavior of Wall Street drove this country into the worst economic downturn since the Great Depression. Millions of people all over America lost their jobs, lost their housing, lost their life savings. Now I find it very interesting that some kid who gets picked up for smoking marijuana can have an arrest record, but the crooks who destroy our economy don't. That's my job. 7 years ago, the middle class of this country bailed out Wall Street because the banks were too big to fail. Yet today, interestingly, 3 out of the 4 largest financial institutions are 80% bigger than before we bailed them out because they were too big to fail. The big banks issue 2/3 of all credit cards and 35% of all mortgages. In my view, if a financial institution is too big to fail, it's too big to exist. Break it up! We need a financial system which provides affordable loans to small and medium-sized businesses so we can create jobs in America. Brothers and sisters, let me be as blunt as I can in telling you, if I haven't been blunt enough, but telling you what you already know. And the issue that people very often ask me, they say, well, Bernie, what is the most important issue? And it's hard to say because all of these issues are so enormously significant. But there is one issue which impacts every other issue. And that is a result of the disastrous Supreme Court decision in the Citizens United case. A decision rendered by a 5-4 vote. As a result of that decision, the American political system, and I use these words advisedly, has been totally corrupted, and the foundations of American democracy are being undermined. What the Supreme Court said in this 5-4 decision, it said to the wealthiest people in America, okay guys, you already own much of the American economy. We're now going to give you the opportunity to purchase the United States government and state legislatures. And that is precisely what they are trying to do. Just think for a moment what in virtually every case, super PACs run by millionaires and billionaires will have more money into this campaign than the candidates' own fundraising capabilities, which means that their campaigns will be dominated by billionaires and millionaires. Think for a moment, and I want you to think a lot about this, what it means in an American democracy, a democracy where people have fought and died to preserve the right of everybody to participate. You have one family today, the Koch brothers, an extreme right-wing family. This is a family who was on record in wanting to destroy, not cut Social Security, not cut Medicare, not cut Medicaid, but end Social Security, Medicare, Medicaid, the EPA. They are not just opposed to raising the minimum wage. They want to abolish the concept of the minimum wage so workers in America can work for $3 or $4 an hour. This one family will be spending in this election cycle at least $900 million. That is more money than either the Democratic Party or the Republican Party will be spending. When you have one family, second wealthiest family in America, spending more money than either of the two major political parties, brothers and sisters, this is not democracy, this is oligarchy. And let me be very clear that any nominee of mine to the United States Supreme Court will have to say loud and clear that he or she will make their first order of business overturning this disastrous Supreme Court decision. And furthermore, we have got to go further than that. What we need to establish, I want this country to have the most vibrant democracy in the world. That means I want us to have one of the highest voter turnouts, not one of the lowest. I want a situation where anybody in America, progressive, conservative, moderate, somebody who has some ideas they want to get out, somebody who wants to serve in public life, I want them to be able to run for office without having to beg billionaires for money. That is why I will fight for public funding of elections. A few weeks ago, I was at an event with Martin Luther King III and people in the Southern Christian Leadership Conference, celebrating the 50th anniversary of the Voting Rights Act. And all of you know what that act was about, signed by Lyndon Johnson. And what it was about is after Selma, when we saw people nearly killed and beaten, after millions of people stood up to demand equal rights for everybody in America, regardless of the color of their skin, the Voting Rights Act was signed, which says that everybody in America is going to participate in the political process. Doesn't matter who you are or what the color of your skin is. But you all know that just a couple of years ago, Supreme Court gutted the Voting Rights Act. And literally, hours after that Voting Rights Act was gutted, you have Republican governors and state legislatures moving aggressively to suppress the vote. Now, apparently, these politicians don't believe that their ideas resonate with their constituents. They don't believe that they can win a fair election. They are political cowards. If you don't believe that your ideas can win an election, don't run for office. Don't come up with bogus, phony reasons to deny people of color, low-income people, elderly people the right to vote. And a few weeks ago, I introduced legislation which we will implement. And that is that everybody in America over the age of 18 is registered to vote. End of discussion. Brothers and sisters, you all know that we live in a highly competitive global economy and that we need the best educated workforce in the world. To my mind, it is beyond comprehension, it really is, that today we have hundreds of thousands of bright, energetic, capable young people who want a higher education. They want to be doctors and scientists and engineers and teachers. They want to serve. They want to grow intellectually as much as they can, but they cannot get a college education for one reason, and that reason is their family doesn't have enough money. That's crazy. It is unfair to them. It is unfair to the future of America. And that is why I have introduced legislation which will become law when I am president, which will make every public college and university in America tuition free. This is important, obviously, not just the kids who are going to high school who are having trouble paying for college. It's very important to them, but this is how revolutionary that concept is. Right now in Chicago, there are kids in the 4th and 5th grade whose mom or dad never went to college, which was my situation as well. My parents never went to college. These kids may not know anybody who went to college. And for these kids, the idea of someday going to college is a dream millions of miles away. But, if those kids know today, in the 4th grade, in the 6th grade, that if they study hard, if they take school seriously, if they know that they do their work well, they will be able to get a higher education regardless of the income of their families. And that is pretty revolutionary because it gives kids something to work for. But the other aspect, the other part of the financing of higher education, which we must address, is the absurdity of millions of young and not so young people in our country saddled with outrageous levels of student debt. And some of them are here tonight. We have millions of people who are paying off $50,000 in debt, paying off $100,000. I talked to this young man. I talked to a young doctor in Vermont, paying off $300,000. Dentist in Iowa, $400,000. People are paying 15, 20, 25% of their limited incomes, paying off student debt. Now here's the crazy part. Here's the crazy part of that. There are people with student debt who are paying 6, 8, 10% interest rates, but you can refinance your home today at 2, 3, 4%. So what our legislation does is say you will be able to refinance at the lowest interest rates you can find. And what it also says is that we're going to get the United States government out of the business of profiteering on student debt. Some of my critics, of which there are a few, have said, well, Bernie, that's an interesting idea. It's nice, it's pie in the sky, but how are you going to pay for it? Well, let me tell you how we are going to pay for it. We're going to pay for it through a tax on Wall Street speculation. When Wall Street collapsed, the middle class of this country bailed them out. Now it is their time to help the middle class of this country. Today, the United States of America remains the only major country on earth, major industrialized country, that does not guarantee health care to all people as a right. Jane and I live 100 miles away from Canada. They have health care for all people. Go to Germany, health care for all people. Go to the UK, health care for all people. France, Scandinavia. Every major country on earth guarantees health care as a right for all people except the United States of America. Today, despite the gains of the Affordable Care Act, we continue to have 35 million people uninsured, and many of you are underinsured with high deductibles and high copayments. Meanwhile, we end up spending almost twice as much as any other major country on healthcare. In my view, we have got to move toward a Medicare for all single-payer program. And when we do that, I mean, it's hard to imagine what it will mean for this country. Can you imagine people not hesitating to go to the doctor when they're sick? Not worrying about being bankrupt when they have to go to the hospital? Can you imagine what it means to workers who will say, you know what? I don't have to stay at this crappy job. I can leave it and I'll have health care. It will also be a significant boon for small and medium-sized businesses who can focus on their business rather than spending huge amounts of time trying to figure out how they provide health care to their workers. Now, I don't have to tell anybody in this room that over the last many decades, our country, we should be very proud of this, we have made huge progress, significant progress in becoming a less discriminatory society. In 2008, you know, if we were here 30 years ago and somebody said, well, you know, in 2008, some guy from Chicago with a funny sounding name would be elected president of the United States, who was African American, you would have said, people in the room would have said, that's crazy, because America has a long history of racism, and we haven't advanced that far to elect a black guy to be president. It happened, and he was re-elected, and we should be proud of him. We have made real progress on women's rights, breaking down all of the barriers, or many of the barriers, that prohibited women from getting the jobs they wanted. And we have broken down those barriers in politics as well. So we've made progress. Obviously, we have a long way to go. If we were sitting in this room 10 years ago, and somebody would have said, you know what, I think conservative states in America would be supportive of gay marriage, people would have thought you'd be crazy, but that's what's happened. So we should be proud of the progress that we have made, but we should also be very knowledgeable that we still have a long, long way to go. I know that I speak for every person in this room who is appalled and outraged by the shootings, by the killings of unarmed African Americans. do not want to see, I know you do not want to see any more of those videos of a black woman being thrown out of her car, thrown to the ground, and then her name is Sandra Bland. Trust me. And then dies in jail 3 days later, and her crime was she didn't signal her right turn. You don't die in this country for not signaling the right turn. And if you're Samuel DeVos, you shouldn't get shot in the head for not having a license on the front of your car. So let me just tell you, somebody who has one of the strongest civil rights records in the United States Congress. Nobody will fight harder to end institutional racism in this country, and equally important, reform our broken criminal justice system. I was a mayor of Burlington, Vermont for 8 years, and I worked very closely with the police department. And actually, we kind of moved our department to where I think we should go as a nation, toward community policing. Because what we want is police officers to be part of the community, not to be seen as oppressors in the community. I will tell you, as somebody who worked hard with our police department, being a cop today is not an easy job, and most cops try hard to do the right thing. But if a police officer breaks the law, like any other public official, that police officer must be held accountable. We need major reform in criminal justice, and one of the areas we're going to introduce legislation on very soon, and I will fight to implement if elected president, is private corporations should not be making money over the incarceration of people. We need to take a hard look at minimum sentencing laws. We need to take a hard look at the so-called war on drugs. Too many lives in this country have been destroyed because of people who have not committed a violent act. That's got to change. And for those people who are in jail, we have got to find a way for them to return to civil society. Common sense tells us that if somebody is let out of jail with no money, no job, no education, no housing, the likelihood is overwhelming that person will end up back in jail. That's crazy. That has got to change. And brothers and sisters, when we talk about bringing the people of our country together, black and white and Hispanic, gay and straight, man and woman, we also have to remember today there are 11 million undocumented people in this country. And many of these people are being exploited. And when undocumented workers are being exploited. Every worker in America suffers because it's the race to the bottom. And that is why I believe that as soon as possible we need to provide legal rights to the undocumented. We need comprehensive immigration reform. And we need a path toward citizenship. I was in Phoenix, Arizona last month, and after the rally that we had, about a half a dozen young Hispanic kids came to meet with me. And tears were rolling down the eyes of these kids who were scared to death that they would be deported or their moms or dads would be deported. Our job is to bring families together, not divide them. Our campaign for president is different than the other campaigns, not just because we have clearly the most progressive vision, but more importantly, it is that I will tell you something tonight that no other candidate for president will tell you. And it's not a pleasant thing that I'm going to tell you, but it's the simple truth. And that is, given the balance of power in America today, given the power of Wall Street, of corporate America, of the Koch brothers, of the media owned by corporations, no president, not Bernie Sanders or anybody else, can do what has to be done to transform this country in a way that works for the middle class unless there is a political revolution. As I can with you. It doesn't make any sense for me to get elected president if we can't bring about the change that we need. And we cannot bring about the change that we need unless millions of people are actively involved in the political process, unless millions of people stand up and say enough is enough. The truth is, you all know this, people who introduced me all made the point. People who own America have enormous power. Nothing today gets to the floor of Congress unless it has their stamp of approval. People in America want to raise the minimum wage. We don't hear that on the Congress. People of America demand that the rich and corporations pay their fair share of taxes. What gets to the Republican Congress of more tax breaks for billionaires. The American people want to expand Social Security. Republicans want to cut Social Security. The American people want us to create more jobs. Republicans want us to cut jobs. The only way that we win is when we stand together. Now, they have the money. They have the power. They determine what you see on the TV and in the newspapers. But at the end of the day, there are a lot more of us than there are of them. And if we don't allow them to divide us up by race, by where we were born, by sexual orientation, by whether we're a man or a woman, when we stand together, there is nothing we cannot accomplish. Thank you.